I will bet you dinner that if he persists with Trent Alexander-Arnold and Phil Foden in this starting 11, post-group stages, they will get beat.
When somebody like Mbappe speaks, I'm doing nothing else but applauding what he says.
The other thing about this tournament, there is no standout nation.
Exactly.
I'm telling you now, we looked at we've seen Portugal, we've seen Italy, we've seen Spain, Germany.
What's happening, guys? Welcome to this episode of a Whisper It Loudly podcast. I'm Jordan Jarrett Bryan. I'm joined by Troy Townsend and Darren Lewis. We are not with Hugh this week. He's working hard out in Germany for TalkSport covering the Euros. Make sure you go and check out his socials to find out what games he's covering and when he's on air as well. Stay safe and enjoy it. Our brother Hugh. We've got a big show today. Guys, and we're going to talk shortly about the Euros and England. We'll talk a little bit more about France, Mbappe, Marcus Thuram, who are using their platform to talk about what's happening politically in their homeland. And we'll end with Talk Me a Talk, which Darren, as usual, has got a gripe he will pick up and take us through. So as I mentioned, we are into the Euros. We're well and truly now, almost a week into the European Championships. Let's get some general thoughts on, are we enjoying it? Any big takes? How are we feeling?
I'm going to kick this one off, and I'm going to just use three words. Performance doesn't matter. I think that I've seen and heard a lot of disquiet over the level of a lot of teams' performances, including England. And tournaments are for winning. If you get to a stage where you do come out with a really good performance at some stage along the way, brilliant. But tournaments are for winning. And I look at the opening games of so many of the countries. Germany are impressive. They would be. They're in their home country. They've still got very good players. Spain were impressive. They're a young, vibrant side. Rodri in the middle of that team. We know what he does for Manchester City. He's gone something like 74 games undefeated when he plays either for his club and with his country. I think mostly with his club, I've got to be fair, not necessarily with Spain, but he is a wonderful player. But if you look at Italy, if you look at Holland, if you look at England's first game, they weren't that impressive. But it doesn't matter because all that matters in that first game is getting the 3 points. And I'm going to do a little experiment here, and maybe with the people watching. Can you remember England's first game at the Euros in 2022?
Oh, the second game, I think. Ooh.
No, not the second game, the first game.
First game?
2021.
Yeah, the last Euros.
Yeah. Don't know.
No.
It was against Croatia. The scoreline?
2-0?
1-0.
1-0.
1-0.
Right? Nobody remembers the performance. Nobody even remembers who we played. Some people probably would remember.
Yeah.
But the general point is, even if I ask you about England's first game at the World Cup in Qatar, can you remember that one?
All I remember is that I was in Hartlepool.
Where was I? I was at
Whilst
school.
everyone was enjoying.
Okay, but stay on phone.
They
Stay on phone.
beat Iran 6-2 the second game.
Okay, but you really have to think about it, don't you?
Yeah.
My general point is, if England progressed deep into the tournament, very few people will remember who we played in the first game or how we played. All that they will remember is that we got the points. And I think early in the tournament, that has to be what matters. You can build momentum, players will get better. All this talk about, I take him out, him out, him out. No, let the team bed down, just amass the points, get out of the group, then you can start to worry about performance as you go deeper into the tournament.
I actually agree, sorry Troy, I agree with Darren that in cup competitions, it's just about winning. Performances for me aren't important. But what I'm assuming the criticism that Southgate and England are getting is because there's this inflated idea that England have this amazing squad and should be wiping the floor of everybody 4-0 with, Panenkas and bicycle kicks in every single half of every single game. And when you don't get that, it's awful. Do you think that's a fair, I've gone extreme there, but do you think it's a fair criticism that they should be doing better? And if they're not doing better now, that's concerning for down the line of the competition.
I get what you're saying, Darren, and but there's always a moment where everyone critiques everyone's performance. So after 29 minutes, 30 minutes the other night, everyone would have been going, this is amazing. This is exactly how we want our England team to play. And then when they fall off of that, and they fell off quite a bit. So I felt you had three halves of a game there where they were exceptional, could have gone 2 and 3, and I think then we'd all be talking a different script, wouldn't we? They were then indifferent when Serbia were just poking, getting back into the game. And then I thought they were very poor because they sat deep 4-5-1 and they allowed the pressure. And to be honest with you, I think if the game had gone on another 10, 15 minutes, and I know it's hypothetical, Serbia would have got something out of the game. I think the critical element of it is there for every nation. You walk in, you play your first game, you're kind of looking at, I always look at the second and the third game and see where they are. You know, it's like saying going through a 38-game season, you haven't played well, but you've won the league. You know, so there is that element where it's the nature of the business. You know, it's looking at teams, thinking about, right, can England go all the way? Are Italy going to, you know, knock them out? Are Germany going to continue to use the wave of, you know, this new wave of kind of excitement around the team to take them all the way? So I get it, I get what you're saying, but the nature of this business, you know it as well as anybody else, will allow that space where people are going to critique performance all the time. I agree with you. I think this starting 11 that started, you know, we spoke last week, didn't we, about Phil Foden quite a bit. We spoke last week about the alternatives of what the midfield could look like. But actually, no one was that bad. I felt for Phil Foden, but no one was that bad that I don't see them getting a run again.
Trent Alexander-Arnold for me, and we must make it clear on this recording that at the time of recording, this is hours before England's second game against Denmark. So if you're listening to this or watching this on Friday, bear that in mind. I think Trent Alexander-Arnold is the one player that I think, I wouldn't say played himself out of the starting 11, but it didn't work.
See,
it didn't work.
I tend to disagree. Listen, I picked him, didn't I? I was the only one out of the three of us last week that said he will play. And I don't think that's a one-game experiment. I agreed at the time that he took him off and Gallagher came on and provided some energy. But I still think he will go with Trent again because of if you've heard the interviews, it's a project they've been working on. I also agree, and I heard some commentary the other day when it said, just imagine if you're a central midfielder of trade.
You're vexed. You're vexed.
Trade.
You're vexed.
And this right back has now come into play.
But
I do think that.
He's not the first top right back to move into midfield. And when other countries do it, we see it and we hail it as masterstrokes. Joshua Kimmich does it. I think it works. I think it didn't work. Well, let me explain and then you can decide whether it works or not. Philip Lahm's done it. Joshua Kimmich has done it. And Germany are the fantastic exponents of that. And I think as far as Trent is concerned, you've got Rice who's going to do, if you like, the dirty work of tracking back and stopping people from breaking on England. And Trent is in the middle for his distribution. He's got a fantastic passing range. And in a way, this is the problem with England. We've taught ourselves to worry about the opposition rather than let the opposition worry about us. And I think if you've got Trent Alexander-Arnold, who's fantastic from dead balls, who can spray the ball around the pitch, who can strike a ball as cleanly as anybody in Europe, why would you not have him in a position similar to Lahm, similar to Kimmich, who do it superbly well?
I'll tell you why. Because being a midfielder requires more than just being a world-class striker of the ball.
No, yeah, positional play. And I literally just explained to you some of the things, some of the other things that he can do from that position.
Everything you've just described is akin to his distribution on the ball. And I'm saying being a midfielder. I want my midfielder to be positionally aware. I want my midfielder to be able to tackle. And I want my midfielder to do.
So when Jurgen Klopp played him in midfield, he was wrong to do that as well.
I think this is another really weird false equivalence of saying they did it with Phil Foden. Because Phil Foden plays well on the left for City, it should work for England.
No, but it doesn't.
No, Phil Foden, plays in a team where the tempo is different. He's also got different players around him. And the same with Trent Alexander-Arnold. I think saying just because it worked for Klopp at Liverpool, it should work for England.
No. You're making the false equivalence, because what I'm saying is, with Trent Alexander-Arnold in midfield, he does the same job, or he's expected to do the same job,
but with different ingredients around him.
Yeah, but they are still top players. In fact,
but
there's an argument for saying that they are better players.
And Van Dijk and Robertson around him.
Wait a minute. We have
the tempo's different.
We have Bellingham, we have Saka, we've got Europe's best striker. The tempo of the team might be different,
which is a key component of why he's so good for Liverpool.
What they are aspiring to is to play at that tempo, to get that rhythm, to get that understanding, and you'll get it the more that they play together.
Do you know
what you're describing is a symptom of the national problem with England.
No.
That if a player gets into a position and he doesn't immediately light the whole thing up like a Christmas tree, he's got to get out. Give the boy time.
The reason I felt
you've got 7 games.
The reason I felt that it didn't work, although I would persist with it, and I disagree with you a bit, Jordan, in regards to, I thought his positional sense was quite good after the opening period when actually England were just playing everywhere. Like Foden was coming in like off of the flank and playing the first half an hour, where their creativity was all over the place. There were times when actually his positional sense was very good, but I think that he gave the ball away in certain circumstances, which would be worrying. And I think if he can tidy that up, remember, he's got Declan Rice, whose positional sense is amazing.
But Troy, do you not think that a lot of people were waiting for him to make a mistake so they could say, see, I told you it was the wrong thing.
I agree with that. And that's why I think that actually he will get another go and he'll get another go. I don't think the 2 games coming up are going to be as intense as the Serbian game. I think we should dominate the ball more. And I know that's one of your things about the central midfield. And I think actually he would have been nervous. And I think that he will actually start to blend into the game a little bit better, more. Like I said to you, my thing is, if you're a central midfield player of trade, yeah, on that bench looking a bit, I can't believe that.
I don't know.
I'm telling you 100%.
No, I'm not doubting that will be the case. But you know what the solution to that is? Get better.
Well, no.
He's a fantastic player.
Listen,
and he brings a superb skill set to the table if he plays in any team.
Gareth trusts his squad, he will make changes at the right times. Yeah. I didn't think he did that the other night. I'm not sure he fully trusts the squad. Foden could have gone early. Saka went. Trent could have gone, or Trent did go. I'll be honest, even Harry Kane could have gone. Do you know what I mean? For an Ivan Toney or a different kind of thing. So I think he needs to trust his squad a little bit more to make sure that if the lads are tiring, if they're not on it, it's one of those games, that he can utilise the squad to the max.
Part of why Saka and Bellingham came off was because they were knackered. A big part of why they were knackered, in my opinion, that second half in particular, they were having to overcompensate for Trent's poor positional play. That's how I saw it. That's how you saw it. That's how I saw it.
I have to give praise to Serbia here. They
stepped up a little.
They stepped a little bit. They shut Saka down.
They did.
They shut Saka down. They made sure that Bellingham wasn't so influential on the ball, and then they started to overrun England. So I don't think that's all about Trent. That should be a collective in regards to players going, boys, they've stepped up. We need to make sure that we're tight and we're tidy. And I don't think England have enough leaders to do that. That's my worry for them as they progress through. Who are the leaders in that England team? Not just through the way that they play, but actually through the way that they communicate amongst the rest of the side as well.
I also disagree with your point that you said.
There's a lot of disagreement.
Darren, not even strays. They're directs coming for you. They're not strays at all. You were known as a stray because you'll be looking the other way. You'll be like, where'd that come from? This is direct. When you said that you thought people were waiting for Trent Alexander to mess up, I'm not in that camp. Let me tell you why. I, for maybe my sins, have been a massive defender of Gareth Southgate. I don't think he's elite, but I think he gets a harder time than he should get. One of the criticisms against Gareth Southgate is that he's not expansive enough. He didn't try things. He didn't experiment. He's boring. He's safe. So him playing Trent Alexander-Arnold in midfield is an experiment. I want it to work, to show that he does try things. He does experiment. He does, he's happy to look at people like Klopp and Guardiola and think, well, how can I take from those geniuses and implement it into my game? So I'm not one of those people that wanted him to fail. I actually like Alexander-Arnold to play. I think he's a brilliant player. I think he's probably technically the best player in the squad. So I've no bias against Trent Alexander-Arnold. I want him to do well and kill it. He's a good guy. But I think I'm looking at that game and saying, you got away with it today. In the latter parts of these Euros, let me tell you, those Italians, the Spanish, the Germans, they will eat that midfield up all day long. All day long.
You know the thing about this tournament? Sorry, the other thing about this tournament, there is no standout nation.
Exactly.
I'm telling you now, we looked at we've seen Portugal, we've seen Italy, we've seen Spain, Germany, and despite the goals from those two nations, I don't think there is a standout.
Thank you. And the other thing is, wait a minute.
Germany will stand out.
Wait a minute.
They could have had 7 or 8.
No. And what do Germany have? They got players playing in midfield.
Yeah, but they know how.
They've got right back playing in midfield. So you are undermining your own argument. And also the other thing, and I've got to say this: if you really do want Trent to do well, give the boy time. Give him time. Be patient.
And I was critical.
I'm happy to give him time.
Although I included him.
I'm happy to give him time.
But don't ascribe everything that's wrong with Trent,
I'm happy to give him time.
with the team, to Trent. Because
no, I'm not.
But that's
my equal issue is with Phil Foden playing on the left. So don't think this is just all about Trent Alexander-Arnold. There's other players in this team that I think are problematic.
Good players.
No, don't say it, Darren. Don't say it, Darren. Don't say it, Darren. Please don't say what you're about to say.
Listen to me.
Please do not say what you're about to say.
Listen to me. There's two things. I've seen Foden play in a variety of positions, and when I've seen him play in those positions, he adapts, and he is a good player. Nah. He will adapt, and not only that, but it's one game. I know we're talking ahead of the second game against Denmark, but there is so much hyperbole and knee-jerk, reactionary. There's a word I want to use that I shouldn't.
Listen, out of the positions that Phil plays, I think the left is his weakest area.
Maybe.
He doesn't know. And that's why in those first 20 minutes, you saw him come off the line, get inside, spot the ball quite a lot, okay, and look comfortable. And I think someone must have said to him, get back out on the left.
Yeah.
And he didn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
So there is a acclimatisation thing there for him. I haven't seen him play great for City there, and I know you've said that. I haven't seen him play great for City there.
I have. Listen. When De Bruyne plays in the 10,
wait.
And Bernardo Silva plays on the right, Foden plays off the left, and he's fantastic.
His strongest two positions are right-hand side and central. There's no doubt in that.
We can agree to disagree.
We're going to agree to disagree. Go and look at the facts. There is no doubt in it.
I just think, Troy, to Darren's point about give Alexander-Arnold a chance in midfield, let's see how it works. I can maybe get on board with that. We've seen enough games of Phil Foden in this England midfield to see it doesn't work.
Really?
So why are we forcing it?
But also
the last two tournaments.
But I also think that Gareth has got to find somewhere for such a unique talent.
No, I don't agree.
He has to. He has to find somewhere for such a unique talent.
This is the issue, Troy, for me. And this is why nations like Germany and Italy traditionally do well. They don't get fixated on this idea of the individual. We have to crowbar the best player.
It's not crowbar. It's not crowbar.
What they do is what's best for the team. What's the best 11?
But you know what?
If that so happens, the best player has to come off the bench, then so be it.
Time.
But you haven't got time.
Of course you do. You've got a whole group stage. They've got the job done in the first game, right? If they win the second game, which we expect them to, and obviously, again, we're recording this ahead of the second game, but
I think
we
if they draw,
expect
they're
them to win.
Yeah.
Okay, and they're
not gonna
through.
draw.
They've been to the back end of the last European Championship. So you're talking about one of the best squads in Europe, allowing for the deficiencies in defence, as if we are the squad that went to Euro 2016 or the World Cup in 2010, which was past its best. This is a young, vibrant squad full of winners, full of players who can play under pressure. It's going to take time for them to gel. But you have to give them that time. And you're a massive contradiction because you make good points about the fact that the team is all important and everybody accepts that. And you're saying that such and such looks uncomfortable and you don't like such and such, but you want them to do well. If you want them to do well, give them time. We could be talking about the same players in 2 or 3 games' time in a very different way, and they could be playing in exactly the same positions they started the tournament in. Give them time.
He's had 3 tournaments so far.
No,
I don't think he's got time.
None of that matters.
None of that matters. How can it not matter? You're talking about
because we're talking about
the next tournament. It could click.
No,
but I'm talking about this tournament.
I'm talking about this tournament. And give them time.
We've got 3 weeks now. That's not a long time to work it out.
It's a lot of games in a short space.
And the games will get better and harder and harder and harder.
Yes, they will. But we've got the players to get us through. We've got match winners, game changers, creative influences, pace in the side. He's got to trust the players, and you need to trust the players.
I think you can do that in the group stages because the competition is of a certain level. All right, I'm so convinced that this 11 that we saw start against Serbia is problematic in the latter rounds. I will bet you dinner that if he persists with Trent Alexander-Arnold and Phil Foden in this starting 11, post-group stages, they will get beat. He has to change it.
No nation will finish with the first starting 11. I'll tell you that now.
No, but
over a period of time, as we're watching the games, there will be managers who are going, yeah, that hasn't worked. Or that.
So I'm right then.
Even if they're winning, managers, even if they're winning, I can't see a nation that plays all the way through the same starting 11 from start to finish.
Well, Darren's point is to give it time. Those two players are the best two players.
The time you give it is just through the group stages, like you've said. You can't then be unsure of what you're going to start with and who may be the weakest elements of that in the knockout
You want some
stages.
as well, Troy? You want some too? I'll take you as well. Yeah.
I don't think Trent and Phil go all the way with this squad in the starting 11.
Because why?
Because I don't like Phil on the left-hand side, and I think they will find. Yeah, I think I've said that.
You think they'll get beat?
Do I think England? I don't think England will win the tournament. But they can win it as much as anyone. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you're kind of with me. Back to you. So are we saying? You want this bet or not? You're so adamant that this needs time. They're the best two players. It will work.
I can pick
I'm
the
telling
restaurant,
you.
yeah? I can pick the restaurant.
No.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a good
If I
shout.
win.
That's a good
Oh,
shout.
if you win, yeah. If you win, yeah, of course, yeah. I think you meant regardless.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So just to be clear,
Okay.
post group stages,
Okay.
if Phil Foden and Trent Alexander-Arnold start in the 11, I'm telling you they get beat.
Okay.
Yeah?
There's an opportunity
Okay.
that they might play Germany next, no?
No,
I wouldn't
it's Italy in the
worry about-
quarters.
The funny thing is, I wouldn't worry about anyone in the front six if we played any of those teams. I'd be more concerned about our defence than anything to do with our front six.
Mark Guéhi was exceptional.
He was,
I thought he was.
but we still have a
exceptional.
right back playing at left back.
Yeah, I agree with that.
would
and
be
we
an
had a
issue
long
for me.
conversation
Well,
about that.
I think
didn't
Luke
we?
Shaw will be back by the knockout stages.
No. I mean, he's already ruled him out again.
Yeah.
He's not right. He's not right. And I can't see in major competition how you can bring someone back from February and just say, go on then, Luke,
It's
do it for
incredibly
us.
hard to do. Incredible.
And that's nothing to do with Luke Shaw, by the way. That's a level of competition. By that stage, we're talking the knockouts. I just don't see how it can. I actually think they've wasted a spot with hoping that Luke would get there.
I think Carl mentioned last week, didn't he, that he surprised the likes of Mitchell or any other traditional left back didn't get called up. No, I think you might be right there. Well, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Just in 10 seconds, are we generally happy with the Euros? Are we enjoying it?
Brilliant.
Good football, good talent we're seeing.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I love it. I love the fact that some of the unheralded teams are doing really well as well.
They're punching, aren't they?
I love watching Albania, for example.
Turkey were good.
Turkey were outstanding for me. Best game of the tournament, their game.
I was going to say Albania, Croatia after a day later. But
Yeah,
it was two
that
really
was
good
terrific
games.
too.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. And even I love the fact that the playing field has been slightly leveled because everyone has been expecting the superpowers to roll over their opponents. But Portugal struggled, the Netherlands struggled,
That's been
Italy
coming though,
struggled.
hasn't it? It happened in the World Cup as well, didn't it?
And
So
the
it's been
reason
coming,
for
yeah.
that, absolutely, is that so many players now are playing in tough leagues around Europe. They're not just playing in their domestic leagues. And that's a great thing. Romania, a wonderful story, father and son management team.
Yeah.
But then let's call out Kante, who's not playing in one of those top leagues, who
that's
looks exactly like the Kante that we knew. And that's the reason why he was called back into that French squad.
I've only got two gripes. One, the sartorial.
Of course you've got a gripe.
Well, the sartorial levels a bit poor. No one looks. You know, we get a World Cup or Euros, you get a manager that looks like, I'm here.
So you're saying
There's a flex there. I'm not seeing no flexes yet.
I think
Well, Gareth's gone for the soft touch, hasn't he? He said that he's coming down
he
from...
looks all right.
like-
but I'm like, where's the roll neck? Where's the...
I
do you know what I
agree with
mean?
you.
The
I agree
trim
with
and...
you.
well, again, I think Murat Yakin, the Switzerland head coach, Google him.
No, he looks
Is that
he's a
the one
handsome
that
man.
his own
No,
brand?
you're right. No, you're right.
Yeah,
You're right.
The
You're right.
waistcoat was poor.
No, that's not him. He didn't wear a waistcoat. Yeah, he wore a...
So who's the guy that wore a suit?
A polo neck.
There's someone apparently who's suited up with a waistcoat.
Wasn't rocking it right now.
Oh, I know.
But it's his own brand, apparently.
It was a two-tone brown, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't work at all.
Didn't
I don't
work.
know who that was.
And the
I'll see if I can find him.
second thing is goal celebrations. I love a goal celebration. Give me like a pre-planned goal celebration. I'm just saying, it's the Euro. Just give anyway. Okay, we're going to stick on Euros and football chat, kind of, because we're going to pivot now to France. France are many people's favourites to win the Euros, but it was matters off the field of play in their game leading up to the match with Austria, I believe, that I think interested the three of us. The press conference they had ahead of their Austria match with captain Kylianm Mbappe, he decided to use that press conference to speak out against the snap election that has been called in France. And he's not happy with the current movements coming from the right, which, very concerning for him, seem to appear like they're going to form some part of the next French government. He, alongside his teammate Marcus Thuram, son of the legendary and my favourite defender of all time, Kylianm Mbappe, and I think Antoine Griezmann as well, have all spoken out and have put themselves the heartbeat of the political discourse. An open letter in France has been written, which has been signed by so many athletes, mainly past athletes, but some present as well. It's accusing the rally of being rooted in Nazi ideology. They're calling out to France to not vote for what they say is a party that breeds this kind of nationalism and divides. Now, we know the culture and racial diversity in this particular French team. We've seen this for many years. It's a rewinding, if you like, to 1998, where they won the World Cup on their home soil. There was lots of criticism from Marine Le Pen's father about this not being actually a real win for France because it was won by people from various colonies and basically black Africans who had migrated to France. And what I want to speak to the two of you about is kind of twofold. It's, first of all, it's about the power of these athletes using their platforms to speak about a very serious point in their history and who they're talking to. But also I want to talk about the parallels that run alongside it, because we have an election here in this country. We also have a party that divides and has, I think we would all agree, racist sentiments, and I'm being kind here, at its core, gathering momentum. And whether we think we should be seeing more of what from Mbappe is doing amongst athletes and footballers from this country. First of all, start with you, Darren. What did you make of Mbappe's press conference, what he's standing for? Because he's been very, very, very straight-faced and serious about the need for people to vote for any other party apart from Le Pen's.
I thought it was terrific. There are a number of things to point out here. The first is that there are lots of people who say sport and politics shouldn't mix. And I'm always mystified by that belief. And I know that the Spain player Unai Simon gave a press conference when he said, look, we're just players who our job is to play and nothing else. But he isn't affected by the kind of thing that Mbappe is affected by, that Mbappe's parents would have been affected by, that millions of people are affected by. And the reason why sport and politics mix is because we don't exist in a vacuum. Players don't exist in a vacuum. The policies that will be enacted if certain parties gain power will adversely affect the people who go out there and perform, athletes. So it's important for them to use their platform to be able to influence the world around them. That's the first thing. The second thing is the importance of what Mbappe did, because there are lots of people who say, oh, well, he's undermined by the fact that he takes money from his Qatari paymasters at PSG, as if that delegitimizes what he's saying. All of us work in, or have worked at some point, for people whose politics we don't necessarily share, but we have a job to do. And the way of the world is that you accept the opportunity to work in places that you don't necessarily find their position palatable, but you do the work. And I can think of a lot of financial institutions, I can think of a lot of sectors of our society whose politics we don't share, but guess what? We've got to get on with it.
Do you think Mbappe does that same press conference if he's still a PSG player?
Yes, I still think he does, because what's going on in his homeland is basically it's a fight for the future of France, the immediate future of France. Macron has called this snap election to fight off the threat of the far right.
But some would argue, some would argue that rise of the far right in France has been coming for a few years, and it's been visible for a few years. Why hasn't he spoken out? And I'm not critical of him for speaking out.
I would. Do you know what? To me, there will always be people say, "What about this? Why haven't you this? Why haven't you that?" He's done it now, and that's what's important. it's not just important in France. We've seen in Germany, there is that anti-migrant sentiment. There was the poll done by a broadcaster where I think around about 25% of people had said that they wanted to see more white players in the team. We know about what is going on across Europe, and we also know what is going on in the UK, and why it will at some point behove players to have to speak again. We know they did it before and during Euro 2020. Tyrone Mings had to speak out against the Home Secretary at the time, who was flag waving as the team progressed to the latter stages of the tournament. But ahead of the tournament, she and the Prime Minister at the time were defending the right of people to boo players taking the knee in pursuit of racial justice and equality and unity. So we are seeing a rise in this, and we have to celebrate it, whether we're black, whether we're white, we all have to celebrate it, because people like the ones who are aspiring to power and gaining a foothold are intent on trying to divide us. And I think unless we have superstar footballers who use their platform, their ability to generate headlines and to influence young people, to counter that, we're going to be in a really dark place.
Troy, do you think that there's always an ongoing discussion around whether athletes and even famous people should be expected to use their platform to speak out on really important issues? And some people think they shouldn't be expected. Some people say, no, you should. The fact is, as Darren says, he's done it, right? He's spoken out on the biggest platform. The Euros is the biggest sporting competition, I reckon, at the moment globally. Do you think, though, he should have maybe gone one step further? Because what he's done is he's made it very clear to younger people, in particular in France, you need to vote. Do you think he should have gone one step further and told them who he thinks they should be voting for?
No, because I don't think he should be influencing the mindset in that way, but he definitely should be talking about, which he did do, the perils of the rise of the far right. And I look at athletes now, and I used to be one that used to say, don't mix sport and politics. I used to be. But the more, obviously, sport has progressed, the more the power of the athlete voice has progressed, and the way that some of the politicians have spoken about the athletes. Darren makes a very good point about, during COVID and the way that people were targeting, particularly footballers, because they always seem to be front and centre, in terms of furlough, in terms of, reduced money, etc. And it was a time when I felt that footballers were right to defend themselves. So that put that dynamics of politics against football right in the forefront. The Prime Minister then aggravating everything by, downing on the England squad when they were taking a knee. Again, Darren's made the point, but, it should have been flagged up the minute they got to the semi-finals, how he put on his England shirt, and he was being very, very celebratory about the nation possibly making a Euro final, because obviously it would reflect well back into the politics scenario, and he can use that as one of his gains. I'm going to turn this back now and say that we have a massive problem with the far right in this country, and no one, football, no one is challenging that. So I laud Mbappe, and I would hope what he would do would empower, just like when, Black Lives Matter and after the murder of George Floyd, how it empowered people to stand up and speak and stand up for their rights. I would hope that almost hearing Mbappe, the world's biggest, most expensive player, talking that way, empowers others to feel, I can do that as well.
So let's go there. So if we, by extension then, are you saying that you think that the biggest English sports stars, and there's an Olympics coming up, Paralympics, Wimbledon, there's some big tournaments coming up. Do you think these guys should be seeing what the biggest football player on the planet is doing and thinking, there's an issue in my country? If you share the politics that the far right is a problem, they should be using their platform to say, hang on a minute, guys, get out there and vote now. This is a live general election happening now. You need to vote now, because if you don't, this is going to get significantly worse for people who share our politics.
But like you said, it's for those that share. I would hope that from a personal point of view, people would have listened to the messaging that was being said, the kind of references around if the far right do get in, and relate that back home and make sure that if they have a stance in this space, and many might not, and many might think it might, go the other way for them as such, But I think it's really important that the sports stars do talk up, speak up, and talk up now. We're in an era now where their voice is probably the biggest and most powerful voices as well. People are so connected with our sports stars now. Social media has done that, but just the way that particularly now, like you've said, at the Euros, when the nation is all on, can England win it? This is the optimum time for messaging to come out. Now, I do believe that the media around will, and I mean closely around the FA and the squads, will not want that at all. They'll not want them to speak out.
I was going to ask you that question because...
What, you mean the media comms?
I think the comms, communications, and that all levels that goes to will want that focus on that focus is we need to win this tournament.
So can I just before you come in, can I just ask you on that then, because I think it's relevant.
You don't think so?
No, I don't have any strong views.
Because what I wanted to ask you next is, with Mbappe doing this, Mbappe, I read, earns 68 million euros. No, but hang on. Let me finish my question. He earns 68 million euros a year just from football. That's not even getting into endorsement deals. The rhetoric I've often heard is footballers don't want to talk out because they're fearful of losing endorsement deals.
I believe that.
He said, I don't care if I lose my deal and how much money I earn. Yeah. I'm speaking out. This is important. Are we in an era now where are we past the era of footballers feeling that if the comms team or their sponsorship team tell them not to speak out, they will?
No, we're not.
So they won't speak out.
No, we're not past that era. We're very much still in that era, and it's down to the individual to think that what they want to do is right, regardless of whatever endorsement they may lose. That's always been an individual choice, and Mbappe and others have made a stance that no amount of money will keep me quiet. And he's spoken, and I'm sure he will continue to speak and will continue to influence. But we are still in that area where the pound note supersedes everything else. And I beg people to tell me any different. I just think, what is more important for individuals? And again, three of us in here, we could all have a different opinion. It's not about the pound note. We're not being paid for this, but it's not about the pound note. It's about our personal kind of references, and also we relate it back to our family, our lifestyles and everything, Someone getting a massive endorsement, for me, sometimes that is the bigger issue. That is the bigger thing for them. Don't want to lose out on the endorsement, don't want to lose out.
But again, Mbappe, is he not the kind of counter to that? Because he's... I guess maybe when you're earning 60 million a year, you can afford to lose a little bit of money.
But you keep bringing money into it, and I don't like that. Not from your point of view, I just don't like the whole...
But the reason why I'm bringing it up is because I wonder if these millionaire footballers, and he said to the president that even though I earn so much money, I don't mind if Nike, for example...
Millionaire sportsmen, millionaire actors, millionaire...
This is more important to me than
bankers,
money.
Millionaire... Do you know what I mean? There's millionaires all over the place, but it seems like it's the footballers or the sports people who do earn that kind of money who are under the most pressure to speak out. But there's millionaires all over the place who earn their money in ways that they do.
The difference is they have profile.
Who?
A millionaire banker doesn't have a profile.
Well, doesn't have a profile in our industry, but has a profile. Don't worry about that, because when they're being paid out...
If Tim Smith, who's a millionaire banker, tweets, I think you should vote X, no one's influenced by that. If Kylianm Mbappe tweets, I think you should tweet X...
No, he's got a bigger influence, but are they not influenced by that? Do we really know that they're not being influenced by some of the biggest earners in this country? So it's something to think about.
Yeah, I just find it interesting that someone that is on has a high profile and a high income and said, I don't care about any of that. This is more important to me than what I may well lose.
I find it inspiring. I think if you look at John Boyega when George Floyd was killed, lost his life, and I'm being careful about language, obviously, court proceedings, etc., etc. John Boyega went to Hyde Park and he gave a rally, and it was inspirational. He said, I don't really care about the Star Wars franchise or any other work that I may or may not lose. I'm going to say what I need to say, and we're seeing a lot of that, and I think it should be celebrated. There will always be whataboutery. All three of us sitting here, let's call it as it is. We're in positions where people are saying, why don't you talk about this? Why don't you talk about that? And then even if you do, there'll be someone else saying, why don't you talk about that? And it's a lot. It's a big burden to carry. Let's not kid ourselves, because every time you do speak about something, you're speaking about it, you're risking your space, you're going to get a huge amount of criticism for people who push back at what you say. And then, of course, there are all of the other implications for speaking anyway. So when somebody like Mbappe speaks, I'm doing nothing else but applauding what he says. And I think the reason I'm doing that is because he will make somebody aware of an issue they possibly hadn't considered previously. He will use what I've felt footballers should be doing for a long... I've been saying this for something like 15 years. Footballers have a commercial power. If they use it, they could wipe out so much within the game and address so much outside of the game as well. And he's doing that. It's not the first time he's done it. He walked off the pitch during the Champions League game against Başakşehir when he thought that there had been a racist comment made. And okay, there were circumstances around what had happened, but he showed that he was prepared to back his talk. So I'm not going to criticise Mbappe at any level for saying that. I'm not even going to say he's done it, you lot should do it, because I think there are people within the England team who are prepared to use their space. I know that. I've seen it. We've seen that. We know that there are other people across Europe that are prepared to use their space. White athletes as well as black athletes.
I can't say too much about this because it's currently in court, but Anwar El Ghazi is in, the former Everton, Aston Villa, PSV, is in court at the moment, defending his right to speak.
Yeah, you probably better not speak
about it. No, but I'm not going to speak about it. But this is the whole thing that we're talking about. His right to use his platform for what he concerned was for good, ended up with his contract being ripped up, and now he's in a legal situation with the club. So it just proves that players are prepared to do it, but there's a consequence all the time. There's not just an acceptance of their voice and the power of it.
Regardless of the consequence.
Regardless of the consequence, but then there is a consequence because his contract got
You see, the thing
terminated.
that you have to bear in mind is after footballers finish playing, or whether it's football or whether an athlete, whatever, sport, discipline, whatever, after you finish, after the lights go out and after all the adulation's gone, the PR people are gone, whatever else, you're a regular citizen, affected by all of the things that people said you shouldn't have an opinion on when you were playing.
At 30-odd, 40-odd years of age, so still young.
This is the reason.
Children are subject to all of those things. Your family is subjected to all those things. Your family is actually subject to all those things more while you are playing.
Yeah. This is the reason why, because I was a bit, I think you said earlier on, I was a little bit on the side of, I don't think we should expect athletes to speak out on these issues. It's not fair. It is a responsibility that comes with a lot. I get it.
But it's their right, though, isn't it? If they want to take it on board or not.
Well, it is. But to your point about when they finish playing, and even when, forgive me, I've forgotten the two athletes' name, but the two black sprinters, GB sprinters, that got pulled over in the car.
Yeah.
The reason why it's important now, and I mean literally now more than ever, for these athletes to speak out, is because there's a live election going on, which is going to reshape, we hope, the shape of this country.
Not for sure.
To make, well, it might not, but now is a chance to attempt to try and change that. And what that does is it changes how we think and we hope the police black people in this country, to ensure that police are better and are not pulling over GB athletes for nonsense. So for me, there is a trickle-down effect of top athletes using these next 2 weeks. There's going to be a new government, we think, in 2 weeks' time. And the reason why I think Mbappe, what he's done is so powerful, because he's realised there's no point me speaking out in 3 weeks' time or in 4 weeks' time. I've got to do it now. I've got to embolden people to vote now, because people are voting now.
And are you saying that you expect our footballers that are out in the Euros and then our athletes that are going to be in the Olympics, you're expecting them to talk out now in this period of time? Because it ain't happening.
Whether it happens or not is a different discussion. I think they have to recognise this is not just, we're not in a period of time where racial tension is at its peak and it's difficult. There's a time where people can make change. This next 2 weeks is a time where people can make change. So I stopped short of saying I expect them to use the press conferences to speak out, but I just hope they see what Mbappe is doing and why he's doing it now, and recognise that the power they have. Mbappe is a superstar globally, so let alone in France. And what we're seeing, I was reading in the newspapers every day, unlike here, the right-leaning parties are actually getting the ear of the younger people in France. Whereas here it's the older
That's
people,
why he said what he
which
said,
is why he's recognised, I need to get these young people away from that particular, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I was talking about, a fight for the future of France. Because if Mbappe can use his superstar status to say, listen, we don't want to be torn apart as a country. We don't want to be at each other's throats. We don't want to be divided. We want unity. And if it's very similar, it's a very different situation to in here, because obviously, even if the extreme elements do get the traction they hope they will get, at best they'll form the official opposition. Whereas over in France, they will gain a share of power, and that's why he's taken the decision to do that. There's no equivocation for me in terms of, was he right to do it? Yeah, but no, but PSG this, Qatari this. I look at since all of the pontificating about Qatar, and I look at some of the people who are celebrating football teams sponsored by Qataris, or I look at the broadcasters that are sponsored by Qataris, and I look at, it mattered to everybody then. Hardly anyone talks about Qatari workers now. I look at some of the hypocrisy that has been so pervasive, that had been so pervasive at that time, that we barely hear about now. And I look in some respects at the record of the UK compared to Qatar on certain issues, that leaves us in no position to be able to criticise countries like that. So there's a huge amount of hypocrisy around taking the money from a club but being able to have a view on your own country. He has every right to speak about France, and I think if he chooses to do it again, and nobody ever talks about Marcus Thuram.
I was just about to read a quote from
because what he said is probably as important, if not more.
It's more. I was going to get to
said.
that next. I wanted to read just a brief bit from what Mbappe said. He's described the situation as dire. Extremes are at the gates of power. I don't want to represent a country that doesn't correspond to my values or our values. And as you say, you're totally correct. Marcus Thuram's quotes, I've not got them with me here, but I think Kylian Mbappe was actually piggybacking off the back of what Thuram had said. And his father, Kylianm, who's for years been a big proponent of trying to get younger people to vote and understand, or not even to vote, but to at least be politically engaged. I think that is the bare minimum they're asking for. At least don't be dormant. Be engaged at least. And you vote who you want to vote for, but at least be engaged.
Absolutely.
And so, I hail up Mbappe to the highest degree, because I think it's very, very, I wouldn't say brave. I've heard the word brave. I don't think it's brave what he's done, but I think it's very, very important what he's done at this particular time.
It's against the narrative. And if it's against the narrative, then it is brave. It is brave because, let's be serious. No one would have expected it during that press conference. They wouldn't have expected him to change the dial, turn into a direction that focuses right back into his home country. The American sports stars do this all the time, by the way. This is not new. You get the biggest names in America when there's issues talking up and talking out right in front of the media.
Do you know why? Because they are aware of their commercial power.
Exactly.
And when athletes in Europe become
and I
aware
thought that we would have bounced off of that
they will
after
do it
Black
more
Lives
and
Matter.
more and more.
I thought they would have bounced off of it after Black Lives Matter. And they did for a short period, and then we went back to type again. I think
it's two things. I think it's one, they're aware of their commercial power. But the second thing is, going back to my last point, they're also politically engaged. They know... They have an opinion on politics. I'm not saying that English players are thick and don't engage in politics.
They're not that way.
They're not.
Of course they are.
But I think the American athletes, maybe it's the way they're brought up. They're politically aware of whether they're right or left is their decision, but they are politically aware. So when they do get asked a question about what's happening in their country, they know what they're talking about.
Yeah, and they challenge. And
they're not like, oh, I don't want to talk about that, and oh yeah, I'm here to play football. They're aware of what's happening politically in their country.
I think it's different. I think the athletes are aware here, but I think, and I've seen, and you've seen as well, in a lot of cases, there are forces around them.
This is what I said earlier.
That persuade them not to use their voices.
No, I hear that.
It's been the case for a long, long time.
But final question: do you guys expect at any of the forthcoming press conferences for England's games a question to be asked of whoever's put up for the pressers regarding the election back here in the UK?
I think it will depend on who the player is, and I won't name any specific players here out of fairness. It's a very sensitive subject, and I don't want to sort of be on social media saying this person will talk or them. But I think there are individuals whose voices have a power and a resonance. And I mean, you work for Channel 4 News. So you're an organisation that appreciates the sport but has a very strong news strand to it. And there'll be players who, if they were sat in the press conference and you were there, you would think to yourself, I think this person could respond to this question.
I think I'd ask regardless, you know. I think
Yeah,
but I can't control what they put up.
But there's a big difference, for example, between one of the younger players. I saw a younger player put up earlier this week, and some people ask him questions that, I mean, he's 18 years of age. You cannot be asking him that question.
No. Okay.
Yeah, but if it's a player who is more confident, and again, I'm still not going to name any names because it'll be unfair. But I think if it's a player who is more senior or more confident or more capable, then you use your judgment.
But even with an 18-year-old, there's still ways of phrasing that's
but do you think
sensitive.
sports media would do that?
Listen, they get a lot of criticism, but
I'm not
they
criticising.
are
I'm not criticising.
people who have not been prepared, who have been prepared to ask difficult questions of, for example, Manchester City, at inopportune times when they've won leagues, and I've seen questions asked in difficult moments. I've seen them push the envelope. I was in a press conference where Eddie Howe at Newcastle was asked about the ownership situation.
I don't think we're disputing that. I don't think we're talking.
But you're
about
asking me, so I'm
next,
telling you.
No. I'm saying what. Yo, don't get like.
I'm just telling you. You're asking me, so I'm telling you.
If we think about it, Jordan really specifically homing in on the election at a time of the Euros. One, do you think the question will get asked? Two, do you think it will be allowed to be responded to? Is for me.
Listen, the one thing I've liked about this England setup and the comms around it is they treat them like men. They treat them like adults. If they didn't, we would have had none of the discourse we had during the last Euros, where players stood up to be counted, they were empowered to speak. And we have to be fair. You know, yes, there have been faults with them, but if you're going to argue, push back against that, you're going to ignore the evidence of all of what we saw from Sterling, from Henderson. I spoke directly to a couple of players within the squad, and they spoke so well on these issues. Tyrone Mings spoke directly to Priti Patel, the Home Secretary at the time. Let's not forget that.
I don't think any of us have forgotten it. And there are very important moments in time. Again, I'm just going to say, and I'm going to Jordan's point, during the Euros, 2 weeks to go, election, campaign, opportunity to go and win your first tournament in 50 odd years. We're now in the nooks of it all. I'm not so sure.
I'm not so sure you can get away with. I'm not so sure
if they want to mix the two.
And I don't think so. I agree. And I'm not so sure you can get away with any more saying we're just here to win a Euros. I just don't think. And it's Gareth Southgate, who we all know is very socially and politically and culturally engaged.
I think it might be asked of Gareth. I think it might be asked of Gareth.
Yes, but I would argue Saka, Kane, other players who have a bigger profile would have a bigger resonance with younger voters.
They might do, but listen. And what I'm doing is we sit here and you ask us questions and we give these documents. Let's be real. I'm not going into a press conference to ask a young boy like a Saka, like a Mainu, I'm not going in there to ask them a question about stuff that is so much bigger than them.
I might.
But you've
just said how
you just disagreed with me on that.
No. How articulate, how aware, how smart they are.
No. I'm talking. Again, this is too important for us to be at each other's throats over. In the last Euros, there were players who were experienced, who were able to take these issues and articulate themselves on them in a way that really did move the conversation on. All I'm saying is pick your player. That's all I'm saying.
We can't. So, for example, let's just say let's just say we go to a press conference. I can't think who's the most politically inexperienced player in the squad. I'll have him. We get given the two players, as you know.
But as you also know, there are players that are put up every other day with England. So if it is the case that you might have to just be patient and wait for the right player. Wait for the right player. But you can't just stick it on it. I say this and you know this, Troy, because we've talked about this before where I have a pet hate, and thankfully everyone stopped doing it. But if there was racial abuse, a case of racial abuse, you go into a press conference and people just ask any black player they see, have you ever been racially abused? Why is that? You know, what you have to do is actually ask the people whose job it is to protect those players what they're doing about it. Don't just stick it on the players. And you have to ask the right people who can respond in the right way. We know that those press conferences are populated not just by football journalists, by news journalists as well. And again, I'm not going to sit there and criticise them. They do a fantastic job, and they often ask difficult questions when other people are scared to ask those questions. They're in there asking those questions. You have to be fair to them. But what they do is they ask the right question of the right people, because they know, I know, and you know this as well, when after a match and you're going for a mixed zone and people are walking through, what do we say? Is he a good talker? Is that person a good talker? Not because we want to disparage them at all, but we don't want to give them things that actually they might not be able to handle. Not handle is quite patronising, but then articulate themselves.
I agree.
Fairly,
but then that's
because again, just to bookend this, some of these subjects are so febrile. You and I both know a word out of place can place even the most articulate of people in a very difficult situation.
Yeah.
It is not fair to put that on a young player.
Yeah. I'm with you. I'm with you. I think it's about how we as journalists, though, maybe phrase and ask the question. It has to be asked with care. So for a younger 18-year-old, for example, I may have to really frame the question in a way that is sensitive.
I'm telling you, if you ask a question to my son at 18 and he doesn't feel able to answer it, I'm annoyed with you.
Why?
Because you're being selfish. You're thinking about yourself rather than him.
So 18, you can vote. So if I ask an 18, hang on. If I ask an 18-year-old player that's put up a question phrased, how engaged politically are your peers? That is, for me, is a fair question. Just tell me, you're a young man.
When you have children,
you're a young man.
He's got children, and he knows.
We've gone back to that again. When you have children,
you will, because you would. This would not be. I would not.
Is that an unfair question of an 18-year-old? Tell me, are your friends politically engaged?
It can be.
Really?
It can be.
I'll stand down on this one. I'll stand down on this one. I'll give Darren that one. It's not often, but I'll take your word. I'll take your word. All right. Let's now move on to this week's Talk Me a Talk. Let's change.
I'm still gloating over.
You're still vexing me. You're still vexing me. Let's do a gear change.
It has been that pod today. I'll tell you what.
Let's wrap up with some smiles and some and some love. Or maybe not. Maybe not. Darren, take us away.
No, I've just been fascinated by the Just Stop Oil thing, and I didn't think I would be. But I've been looking at a number of the things they've done. They've obviously covered Stonehenge in the orange, what was it? Orange paint? It was not orange paint. It's you can get rid of it, can't you?
Powder,
something.
And there's some massive security implications of the Stansted airport breach, where they covered the planes in the similar substance. I mean, how on earth they were able to get airside? If you think about how difficult it is to get airside, and they've managed to do that, that's remarkable for me. And I think, but I couldn't help thinking or wondering. A lot of people are saying that what they're doing is alienating them from Just Stop Oil, but I think of all the people who have tried to raise awareness around a number of things, not least us. We speak all the time about racism, and we get so much grief, stick, pushback, opprobrium. But we know why we're doing it. And so is what they're doing it's a difficult reaction they're getting.
Helping or harming them.
Helping or harming them.
Lovers?
It raises awareness. It raises the conversation. It puts them and their topic of conversation in the public domain. But how much influence is it having? I always think of how much influence or change is it having? You know, and are you taking this point because it's affecting you, or are you just intrigued because at one stage a politician might talk about it? But what is its effectiveness? is it change that we are going to see now? Is it change for the future? Is it engaging more people to understand and believe in what they're saying, and that we need to, if we don't make change now, there won't be a future? I just don't know if it's the right way of going around things. I really don't. I think there's more objection because, you know, when they were sitting down in front of motorways or traffic lights and you know, this whole thing in this country is I need to be somewhere and I need to be now, and you're obstructing me from doing that, so I'm just going to pull you across the road and then ultimately drive over you. I don't see what change is going on. There may be someone better scripted than me that might actually say, well, look, this is happening and they've made this decision but I don't see what is happening on the back of it. It's creating conversation. But isn't it past that stage now of just creating conversation? Should it be more? Should we not be understanding what the impact of them is happening?
Well, the impact is that there is a climate debate. There is a climate conversation. There is an understanding of what they want. There's an understanding of what the country needs to do. There's an understanding of what the failings of the people running the country and even the people aspiring to take over from the current government are not doing. There's an understanding, and so at a very basic level, they've already succeeded in making people more aware.
I think just my brief point would be they clearly are trying to send a message to what's now going to be the incoming government, and they're not happy with the targets, objectives that the government, well, both parties are put out, and they're basically saying we're going to keep causing havoc in the country until we see that you have a serious plan that adheres to what we think needs to be done. And they're going to carry on. They're going to carry on. I'm all for effective forms of protest. So, and I say that as someone that doesn't have kids, so it doesn't affect me doing the school run in the morning. So I understand that people listening and watching this are saying, "What's right for you? You're not the one." So I totally accept.
Yeah, but you got to go to work, innit?
I've got to go to work, and I've still got when they mash up the trains, I've got to get across London as well. But what I would say as well is, how about black people take a leaf out of their book in terms of trying to get a message across?
Oh, come on, don't do that. Don't do that. Do you know how much black people have risked over the years?
No, I do. No, I do. No, I do. No, I do.
Going there
because I'm saying what they'd say. They have a cause. They want change politically, and what they're saying is we're prepared to cause the most amount of disruption to get our message to the government. So I'm saying rather than us kind of, oh, these people are mashing up paintings and museums, whatever. Why don't we take a leaf out of that book and say, why aren't we blocking roads to get social justice? Why aren't we mashing up paintings to get social justice?
Imagine.
What?
Can you imagine?
I'm saying rather than looking at them like, oh, they're causing trouble, they would say they are making gains.
Yes, I get that.
So if we want to make gains,
what we got to follow their lead.
I'm just saying, let's not look down our nose at them, because what they're doing, they clearly feel is working.
I don't think any of us have mentioned looking down our nose at them. Are you taking it in a bigger?
Not here per se, but I hear this. Oh, these people causing trouble, and I'm like, they don't want to be doing this, so they're doing it because they feel there's going to be an end goal to it. They want change. So I'm saying if we want change, if we want a better police force, if we want people that treat our kids in schools better, if we want better treatment for our women in labour and in the hospitals, how about we do what it takes to get that?
I'm amazed you're saying that.
Do
you know the history of black protests in this country over the years, Jordan? See?
The Black Collective does come together. Are you saying that we don't? Are you saying that we don't do it with enough intensity, with enough?
Do you know intensity? Do you know how many riots there've been?
That's
what people have been killed.
I'm not saying this to say that we haven't been to the nth degree for social justice. I'm saying the fight hasn't ended. The fight hasn't ended.
But the fight's never going to end.
But then we can't stop then.
But fights take many different forms. Fights,
Is our fight winning?
You're here with a voice. You're able to influence people.
Of course, but our nephews, our cousins, our kids are still getting licked down by police.
Absolutely, and it's never going to be winning. Let's not kid ourselves about that. But does that mean that we've stopped fighting? Does that mean that we've not stopped speaking?
No, I'm not saying that we don't fight.
We're doing it in a very different way to what Just Stop Oil are doing.
Why can't we do both? Why can't we do both?
People have done both for years, for decades. People have risked their space, sacrificed positions, sacrificed their jobs, been beaten up, in some cases being killed, in some cases lost their
I don't
livelihood,
dispute any
in
of
some
that.
cases are still in prison.
I don't dispute
well, if you're not
any of that.
disputing any of it, how are we
I'm
having
not
this
saying that we
conversation?
don't protest. I'm not saying that we haven't come together. I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying I'm looking at what these people are doing and they clearly feel it's making an impact. So I'm saying, can we maybe learn something from that method? That's all I'm saying.
What we've learned over time is the importance of taking people with you. And I think the whole premise of this debate is that Just Stop Oil, there is a big body of opinion that they are not taking the public with them. My view is that they're managing to make it onto front page.
What does that
front
look?
pages.
What does that mean, though?
Let me
Take
just-
people with. Sorry.
They're managing to make it onto front pages. They're managing to make it onto news bulletins, national news bulletins. And I'm listening to hour-long phone-in debates where people are asking this very question, and you're getting a cross-section of opinion. It is not all aimed at hammering Just Stop Oil. But again, they do something else, and as if they're raising the bar in terms of how much outrage they can generate. And so I'm not sitting here condemning them. I'm just asking, but I'm not sitting here condoning them either. I'm just saying the history of effective protest go back to chaining yourself to a railing as the horses turn for home on Tatton Corner in the Derby. There is a long history of disruption for the greater good. And I'm saying it might be the case that they're not taking people with them, but they're still getting that message out there.
Troy, Darren, thank you very much for your time. Don't forget, subscribe to us if you haven't already here on YouTube. Slap the subscribe button across your favourite, whatever your favourite podcast platform is. Share it in the WhatsApp groups. Share it amongst your people them. And we're on socials too, Instagram, TikTok and Twitter. Retweet, like. We are building a nice audience and community here at Whisper It Loudly. We've got so many more things we want to discuss. We've got some great guests lined up as well. Join the fun. We'll see you next week. Peace.